You're listening to The Seed, brought to you by Buick Real Estate, Staley Credit Union, and the Brecknitz Group of Raymond James. Welcome to The Seed. I'm Julie Staley, coming to you from Spencer Films, where we are working on our documentary Fields of Gold about the life of A.E. Staley. And we are partnered in this podcast with the Staley Museum. And Laura Yar, the director of the Staley Museum, is our co-host, but she is off today. So it is just myself talking today about how this film is going and about some great details that we're going to share with you coming up. We also want to thank our partners, Herald and Review, First Mid Insurance Group, and McGuire, Uhas, Huffman, and Buckley CPA firm. That's along with our sponsors, Buick Real Estate, Staley Credit Union, and also the Brecknitz Group of Raymond James. So many businesses are helping us to tell this story and to get our documentary out there. And we are in post-production for this film and are working very, very fervently to try to come up with a quick timeline to get this out to people. And hopefully we will have some more announcements very soon. But I do want to introduce our guest today. Bill Deetz joins us. And Bill has some really amazing stories to tell us about how the Staley Company really was run from within. Bill is the great grandson of G.E. Chamberlain. Welcome, Bill.
Welcome to you too. Thank you so much, Julie, for having me today.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
So, G.E. Chamberlain, people who are familiar with the company definitely know all about G.E. Chamberlain. But for those outside of this circle, he basically was the right-hand man for A.E. Staley. And he sure did need a lot of help in getting that company up and running. And G.E. Chamberlain was the person to do it. He started there in 1912, and this was right after the company, the factory had opened up. So he wasn't there at the very beginning. A.E. Staley knew right away that he needed a lot more help, and he turned to G.E. Chamberlain. Maybe, Bill, you can fill us in on what you think those qualities were that he had that A.E. Staley was looking for.
Well, real quick, he was born in 1870. In 1892, he got his chemist degree from Lehigh University. And from reading the stories, I tell you, let me go back a little bit. In 2016, we had a reunion for GE. GE had 3 daughters. And so basically, everyone, all my cousins from those 3 daughters came in 2016. Barbara Church organized it and got help. Also, I think also my sister Marty helped. But there was 45 of us. We all got together, and there was a historian from Staley's that came and spoke and did a slideshow. But he in 1912, he started with Staley's. He was basically a chemist, but if you read the stories about him, he's a jack of all trades. I mean, he knew everything about everything. I mean, and he had, he loved to read. He was just a walking encyclopedia. And he just and AE could count on GE on anything,
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I was reading here a little bit ago when their plant was growing, they were using the water from the Sangamon River, and GE knew if they expanded, they would run it dry. And so that's when they started the talks about the Lake Decatur. So and AE and GE, but then GE was the one that did the presentation to the Decatur board, to try and get this passed to where they could build a lake so that Staley's could grow. And I mean, that was one of many instances that AE depended on GE. I mean, from building, new buildings there. I mean, basically AE would come to GE and say, these are my thoughts. This is what I'd like to do. And then, and GE would run off with it, and get it done,
Yeah.
and AE never had to worry about, um, because he knew GE get it done. I mean, that's what he was known for.
He relied on him so much. Again, we keep using the term right-hand man, and he really was, because a company that became as large as it has now, to get that up and running had to be an immeasurable task. And G was the engine that was making it run, so
Right.
to speak. I mean, kind of quite literally, because he knew how to build. He actually knew how to
Right.
engineer and build these things, because he had
Right.
quite a background with this, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, he had backgrounds. I mean, I think anything electrical, anything that he went into, he had backgrounds. I mean, when you think about it, he started in 1912 with Staley's, okay? He passed in 1926. He did all this in 14 years. I mean, I think he did more in 14 years than somebody that worked somewhere for 30 or 40 years. But he got it
Exactly.
done in that because he never just he would never sit and go, this is enough. He was always looking for the next thing. He always had his, if it wasn't the Decatur School District, it was, the lake, it was the Masonic Temple. I mean, he wanted Decatur to be a special place.
Absolutely. He and A.E. Staley shared that kind of a vision,
Mm-hmm.
and then the personal attributes that they had for wanting to make the community better, make life for the employees better, and it was a family atmosphere. They both felt that and fostered that together. So there were some real shared values
Mm-hmm.
that they had that helped move things forward. Now, Mr. Chamberlain also had his own inventions and things that he had created as well,
Right,
right?
right. I mean, he invented it. It's basically like a portable grain dryer, and basically what it does is like where they used to they use kilns to dry in the past before this came up. But what he invented was something that could, number one, be a lot quicker. Number two, it didn't ruin the crop. Sometimes doing the kiln would actually, I don't know if it's burned. I don't know exactly all the details, but it made it less expensive for the grower, for the grower, everybody. I mean, it was a huge invention. I mean, worldwide invention that he patented, and I mean, this, I really think this really, it was almost like a rocket that shot off for Staley's when this came around.
It really changed the way people
Yes,
could lead their lives at that point.
yes, yes.
Yeah, some really rich history, which we have a lot of companies in Decatur that share rich history, including Viewig Real Estate. They're also proud to support Decatur and its rich history. They not only help people buy and sell residential and commercial real estate, they enjoy connecting them with the community that we all very much love. Decatur and Central Illinois have much to offer anyone who chooses to reside here. And Viewig Real Estate is ready to help you find and buy that dream home or business. You can find out more at viewigrealestate.com. That's VIEWEG realestate.com. Viewig Real Estate, working hard so you don't have to. And that's exactly the way G.E. Chamberlain looked at things. He was always somebody who was doing something. What Bill, what kind of personal attributes or characteristics have you heard as a family member or know of as a family member that you think really contributed to his success?
Well, I think for a couple of reasons. I think his personality, not only was he knowledgeable, but he was very personable. It's written that his employees loved him, and that he treated, basically, I mean, his employees were like his kids. If they did the job and did it well and worked hard, he would praise them. But then on the other end, if they didn't, he would let them know too, and he could be hard too. But he was basically, the biggest thing they said, he was very fair, to his employees, and to the community too. So it's not all about, sometimes you think about it's all about what but it's not all about what it's how you treat people.
Absolutely, and A.E. Staley was an example of that. Not only how you treat people, but listening to other people. That's something
Right.
A.E. Staley really did because he was not an educated, formally educated man. So he really relied on the advice of other people, which meant that he really listened
Right.
to G.E. Chamberlain quite a bit. Who George is his first name, correct? Uh,
Right. Right.
but
George Edwin
George Edwin,
Chamberlain.
and most people just called him GE, so we had GE
GE.
and AE, so I'm sure
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
there were a lot of miscommunications, with that.
Yeah.
Now, another interesting thing that I'm not sure a lot of people know the history about, but since A.E. Staley was so caught up in, running the company, keeping
Hmm.
things going, figuring out how to get from here to there, um, he really relied on GE for all of these extra tasks. And one of the things in the middle, kind of right in the middle of all this that happened was the Staley Fellowship Club that became popular. And out of the Staley Fellowship Club, we all know came the athletic teams. And what two of the big things that came out of there were the baseball team and the
Right.
football team,
Right.
which I'm sure everybody's heard a little bit about that
Right.
football team. G.E. Chamberlain was key in making the things happen the way that they did happen for the athletic teams, in particular with the football team.
Right.
And helping select George Hallis to be on the
Hmm.
team, and helping to make the decisions that A.E. Staley led to in deciding to let the team go to Chicago, and then eventually letting the team go off on its own. So he really was very integral in that piece of history.
Right.
What is it that that you talk about, I guess, within your family about what you remember from that?
Well, I think, like I said, the biggest thing was his love of sports. I mean, he loved all sports: golf, tennis, football, baseball. But McCaskey, the grandson of George Hallis, actually came out with a book about his grandfather, and he mentions GE coming up to visit his grandfather and luring him to Decatur to start the Decatur Staleys, and but I mean, that was just, and AE knew, I keep going back on this and I apologize, but uh, when GE wanted something, he could get it. You know what I mean? I think that
Mhm.
was, and he knew that was very important to AE.
It was
Uh,
influential, and
yeah,
AE
yeah.
needed that from
and,
him.
and and he knew how much it meant to AE too, to bring George Hallis back, and so he basically, and he just sent him up there and said, "Hey, bring him home. Let's start a football team," and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of our photographs in our files of the two of them
Hmm.
sharing sports together, and I think it's something that, yeah, they really could sit back and say, we've done something here that everyone really appreciates.
Hmm.
They, of course, didn't know how far it was going to end up going.
Right, right,
No one could
right,
have
right.
predicted
Or who'd have
that.
known?
Um,
I got an interesting story. My grandmother, Marguerite, and she was the youngest of the three girls. Um, when GE passed, she would get every year before the Bears started their season, they had this big dinner and they sent these big invitations out. And my dad used to tell me every year she would get one. She never went, but she always got one uh, every year from the Bears organization. And so I thought that was kind of neat. That was nice. And so they still showed their appreciation. You know.
Yes, absolutely. They've continued to do that. There was in the 1950s, they had a Staley Day at Soldier Field, and A.E. Staley Jr. was there at the time, and the team recognized the company and the history that was there. And then, of course, we had the 100-year celebration where
Right.
the Bears came down and to Decatur and had a huge celebration. And we were so grateful that they did that. This was, of course, right before the pandemic, so we got it in just in time. But it was a wonderful celebration that really literally brought everything home. So so much pride there in Decatur, and we're so glad that the team has continued to honor that. So
Oh,
many wonderful stories
oh,
about that. And
oh,
we,
oh,
I meant. Go ahead.
On that 100th anniversary, my nephew Taylor and I went to it, and they had like a part where you could get in line or where get a picture. McCaskey was there, and I had a chance to tell him, who I was and who my great grandfather was, and he had heard of G.E. Chamberlain.
Oh,
I thought that was,
absolutely.
I thought that was, it's kind of, the connection or whatever. I think I was probably longing for it more than he was, but
Yeah, I don't think he really knew who, he was going to be able to talk to that
yeah,
day, because there were so many people there,
yeah,
but I know that Mr. McCaskey was really glad to be able
yeah,
to learn this history
yeah,
and to actually meet the people who were part of this in some way, the descendants of the people who
right,
were part
exactly,
of this. It was,
exactly.
like a
It
family
was
reunion
pretty,
in
yeah, it was
some
pretty
way.
neat. Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
was
it
really
was a
neat.
really wonderful day. So we
Hmm.
are grateful to the Bears for celebrating that.
Yeah,
So hopefully, in another 50 years, we'll all be
yeah,
here to celebrate it again. So
my grandchild.
right, we'll send our grandkids. So,
Yeah,
but we mentioned the Staley Fellowship Club is how all of this got started. The other thing that started with the Staley Fellowship Club, of course, was the Staley Credit Union, and the credit union asks, "What if you owned your bank?" And if you join the Staley Credit Union, you will. When you're in a credit union as a member, profits come back to you, not the investors. And how does that happen? Well, if you think lower interest rates on loans, higher dividends on savings, financial education, and unmatched member service. You can become a member today. Visit staleycu.com. And this institution is not federally insured by Member Choice, but it is proudly insured by American Share Insurance. So, yes, another piece of the history there that was started through the Staley Fellowship Club and continues today. They just opened a new branch, I believe, in Lafayette, Indiana. So they're still growing. So it's really amazing to hear these pieces of the company continue to grow and continue the legacy in some way, shape, or form. Bill, you had this family reunion that really
hmm,
had to be kind of an amazing experience as a family to get together and to see all of this history and this legacy that the company, this was Tate and Lyle at the time, had put together for
right,
you.
right. And really, when you think about it, I mean, I didn't even really know any of about this history through the 60s and 70s. It wasn't until probably late 70s my dad started talking to me, and I kind of felt bad at the time because I was growing up through the 60s a Packer fan. And so I had to
Oh
go from a
no,
Packer
I can't believe
fan
you
to
said that.
I had to go from a Packer fan to a Bears fan real
Oh, we may
quick.
have to bleep that out.
But basically, all I went on is what my dad would tell me, stories that he had or whatever. But it wasn't until 2016, again, I think Barbara Church and some other relatives that helped put this together. I mean, we had people as far as California, and we had people from Alaska come
Mm,
in for
wow.
this reunion. And so we had like around 45 people. I think right now it says there's 170 descendants and growing, it says, obviously. But we had 45 that showed up, and it was amazing because like I said, I just knew only of the stories
Mhm.
that my dad would tell me. But I know my sister did a lot of genealogy about our great grandfather, and she got a lot of information through that too. And then, like I said, the historian also as far as pertain to Staley's, it was story after story after story that I'd never heard. I
Mm,
just like, I'm sitting there going, yeah, I knew this guy was pretty big, but I didn't know he was that big. I mean, it was a pretty special night. And just to be around, people relatives that I've never met. And I know if it wasn't for this, I'd have never met him. So it
absolutely.
was pretty neat. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, that's really wonderful that they were able to, put that history together and put the
Hmm.
family together for to celebrate that. Of course, you've seen at the museum we have a display there with a picture for G.E. Chamberlain, and there are many articles in the Staley Journal which you can read online
Yeah.
through the Staley Museum if you search for G.E. Chamberlain. Quite a bit of articles
Oh, there's quite a
uh,
bit.
about
Yeah.
he wrote a lot of the articles in there. He would actually, write a report about this or a story about that,
Hmm.
have a diagram and how things were working. So he really kept in touch with the employees that way,
Right. Right.
and being able to connect with them in that way. Now, we touched on it a little bit earlier. He was very active in the community and wanted to make the community a much better place. And so, aside from the Staley Company, you mentioned, he was involved in the Masonic Temple, which I know A.E. Staley brought him in with that.
Hmm.
And I know that he had donated his library, his literary
Yeah.
collection was donated to the Masonic Temple, and they have a whole library there now that contains his books. Do you have any books from
Well,
that collection?
no, but I'll tell you a funny story. My nephew Taylor uh, got married, and his reception was at the Masonic Temple. And so at the time, my three brothers, my sister were there attending it and reception, and we started just kind of checking out the building, and we just happened upon this small library with our great grandfather's portrait right in the middle. And like
Mm,
I was saying earlier, they said he had the largest private library in Decatur. And
yes.
he donated that when he passed, he donated that to the Masonic Temple. So I thought that was, we've got a family picture of us sitting, there's like a bench, us sitting with his portrait above and the books surrounding. It's a really,
Mm,
really neat picture. And like I said, he also is active in the Decatur education. In fact, the school board wanted him to be part, but he said he just, he can only, he only had so many hours in a day, and
yeah.
he just didn't have the time. Because I assume the way reading everything, if he committed himself, he was all in. He wouldn't be just part time. And so he realized he just didn't have the time, and he was also actually a big part of, like we said earlier, Lake Decatur. In fact, he was wanting them. I forget how many feet they were going to have it, and he was like, "No, you need to, it needs to be deeper than that for us to, to be effective." And so he was a big part of that, and just in AE, anytime he wanted, speeches, he'd always go to GE. GE was, I mean, if I could, can I read something here real quick?
Absolutely, and
Okay.
I know there are a lot of speeches that are
Yes.
mentioned in the history of this company that he made. He did make a lot of speeches because I don't think A.E. Staley really wanted to do that. I think he
Well,
had G.E. Chamberlain do
I
that.
mean, I've got a couple of things real quickly. Uh, this one here, though, he said someone wrote, he is a master of a number of things. He is a chemist, an engineer, a mechanic. He has well developed journalistic abilities as a toastmaster and speaker. He is hard to beat. He is an excellent huntsman. He is interested in all sorts of athletics. He enjoys golf for the pleasure he gets out of it, and also its reducing value, a little humor, and dancing for the same reasons. There are few who can appreciate a good joke more than he, and one needs to see only a little more of his picture than is shown in the journal to know that he has a healthy waistline which vibrates when he laughs. But I mean, he's an unusual executive. He's a dandy boss. He's a good sport, a jolly good fellow, and a darn fine man.
Mm, what a tribute.
Well, there's a lot of those that came because when he passed, I don't know if we can get into that right now, but there was his few. I mean, to start out, he the weekend before he passed, like that. Back then, you didn't know the issues. You didn't have all these different doctors, and you don't. They say he was healthy. You don't know for a fact if someone's healthy right before. I mean, so he passed suddenly. I mean, he
Mhm.
had intestinal problems like on a Saturday, to the point where he was in the hospital, but got better Sunday. In fact, he said there's a report that he had said, I'm going to work Monday. And then that Sunday night, he just went, they say he went downhill and he passed away. Now, that was the day before my dad was born. So my grandmother, here she is, about to give birth, loses her dad. And they say my dad was originally going to be, my grandfather's George Edward Deetz. And when my dad was going to be born, that was his name. But since, my great grandfather passed the day he was born, they changed it to George Chamberlain Deetz, my dad's name. And my son's got the middle name Chamberlain, Jacob Chamberlain Deetz. So it was the funeral, they say, was unbelievable. There was thousands of people. I mean, and there was businesses that Staley's had, multi-state, that the executives came in to pay their respect. And they, even that night, put him on a train. Wabash Railroad donated the train to take him back to his hometown in Pennsylvania. And they had a visitation there. And so it was, there was a lot, he was a respected man in the community.
Absolutely fitting for all he had accomplished, and yes, he would have had many colleagues, business colleagues throughout the country by
And
then.
worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely, because the company had a lot of contacts and
Mhm.
offices around the world. So and it being so sudden and being such a vital part of the company, it had to be a really tremendous loss for everybody, for the family and
Right.
for the industry and for the company. So very, very fitting tribute to him for so much history that he is part of. We have other companies in Decatur that are part of history. The Brecknitz Group of Raymond James. There, you'll find a team of professionals with more than 250 years of combined experience, offering steadfast guidance for families, individuals, businesses, and institutional investors. And their powerhouse of experience is supported by the award-winning resources of Raymond James, one of the largest independent financial service firms in the country. So for more information, you can visit thebrecknitzgroup.com. That's the BRECHNITZ group.com. The Brecknitz Group of Raymond James. It's a financial future backed by strength and stability. Absolutely what the Staley Company was about back then and really still is today, thanks to all of the efforts put in by people like G.E. Chamberlain. And it's just been really wonderful to talk with you today, Bill, and hear about how your family is celebrating and honoring this legacy that you have.
Okay, can I say something?
Yeah,
Julie,
absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for involving us in this. This has been very, very special. You've involved my son. You involved my brother. It's been a special ride. And I tell you, may I make it a suggestion? You
Sure.
need, and I'd be more than happy to do it. Somebody needs to interview you because you got a wealth of knowledge that I think would be interesting for somebody on the other side to be asking questions like, where did this all breed from? I mean, how long has this been going on? I mean, I could think of like 20 questions right now I could ask you.
Well, I suppose this would be a time you could ask a few of them. I'm always open to questions. Of course, our museum, we're open if anyone has questions anytime to come over there. But I'll let you shoot. We've definitely got time for a few questions.
Well, okay. When this documentary is going on, I mean, I would like to know exactly what was the motive of doing this. What was something that you came across or you read, or I obviously Mark, but something had to go, okay, I want to do a documentary, and obviously you're doing it right. So what brought you to that point?
Yeah, absolutely. A very good question. This was something that came out of wanting to really promote the museum. The Staley Museum we opened in 2016, and we just wanted to find a way to really tell this story. And we know that there's a lot of history here that's combined with American history and even world history, and as far as how A.E. Staley introduced the soybean in America and changed that for American farmers. And then, of course, we have the history with the athletic teams, and especially with the football team, even though that's just really a small part of what he did. And so we thought, it would be nice to have, it would make a really nice story to tell, and to be able to document everything that we have, and to create a documentary would be something. It would be a huge task, but it would be something definitely that we have the resources for. We have so many thousands and thousands and thousands of archives, and mostly because we have been able to partner with Tate and Lyle, which now has changed hands to Permanent, of course, but at that time it was Tate and Lyle, and they were very, very helpful in allowing us to access the archives that they had at the company. So we just have everything back to literally before it all started. And A.E. Staley really started working as a company in 1898, and then he kind of reformed in 1906. So there were a couple of different phases, depending on how you want to look at it. And we have documents that go back to then, and we really want to be able to share that, because this is it's not just family history. It's not just our history. This is Decatur history. This is history of all of the people, of all of the families who had a hand in building this company, like yours, Bill. So we want to do this for the families, for the individuals, for the lives that were spent at that company, helping it grow and become what it is today. And we hope that the museum and that this documentary will be something to honor all of the legacy of everyone that's been involved. So that's why I really love that you and your family have really been so generous in your time and cooperating and helping out with us, because it's your history as well. We can share that too. So yeah, so we really just feel like hopefully it'll do everybody justice when it finally comes out. It feels like we're in our 4th year now. We're after 3 years plus working on it, but we're in post-production and we're getting close. So pretty soon.
Pretty soon. Well, I think, and I know, that you had a team, and
yes,
you must have had a great team, because obviously to go over all this information and go the different directions that you had to, because I know you just didn't do this in Decatur or Springfield. You actually flew to different locations, correct, to get some information or some stories about AE, correct?
absolutely. And this was kind of during the pandemic. We kind of had to really work around that. A lot of working at home for people. And then we went out to North Carolina, where A.E. Staley, of course, was born in a log cabin on a farm out there. And boy, that itself was an amazing
Yeah.
experience, to just be there on the land and see. The log cabin is not there, but the house is still there. There was a house later built, and that house is still there. It's not in great condition, but it's still being used. And to be on that land, there still is a family member that owns a piece of that land. So
Oh, wow.
that is even better. We were able to, connect with many people there who knew that history, and connect with people who knew the family. So that was a wonderful, wonderful trip to make. So we brought a film team out there for that. We went to the Football Hall of Fame. They were exceptionally hospitable to us, with all of the history that's there, and we were so glad to go there. And we also made it to the Baseball Hall of Fame, which again, they had amazing hospitality too, and really just opened their doors to everything that we needed to tell this story. And so that's really just some wonderful organizations. Also, the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum, they also were able to give us information, and we've done an interview over there. So we just are so grateful for all of these entities being able to be involved. We did interview someone in North Carolina from the Smithsonian, a Smithsonian affiliate museum there, and they had a lot of history about A.E. Staley, and how what he did ties into into the history that they have in North Carolina. So we really have been able to fill out this story quite a bit. And the partnership that we have with everyone throughout the way, the relationships we've created have just really been invaluable. So I've really,
That's
really
great.
appreciated that.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah.
I could go on and on, but obviously that probably is not your plan.
Well, I just want this to be about, yeah, the history
Yes.
that everyone shares together.
Yes.
And hopefully we
And
can.
you more than anyone else would, know the history. And so, yeah, it was, maybe down the road or something, I'll come up with about 20 questions because just those two questions took 10 minutes. I mean, it took, I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge and it's great.
Well, I tell you what, maybe we'll do a podcast later and we'll just
Yeah.
reverse the roles and you can
Yeah.
be
There you
the
go.
interviewer. How's that?
There you
We'll
go. Oh, I'd love to do that. I'll do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
well
I'll be
we'll
ready.
plan on that. We'll do
Yeah.
that as another one down the road. That'll be fun. That'll be a turn the
Yeah,
tables.
yeah, exactly. That's what we'll call it, turn the table.
Turn the tables. There you go. That's wonderful. It's always, always good to talk to you, Bill. You have so much history and information, and I know we'll be talking again very soon. And I thank you so much for all of your time, and so glad that your family's been able to celebrate all of this history
And I
together.
can't wait for it to come out, and Julie, Laura, thank you very much again for involving us.
Awesome, awesome, awesome time, awesome information, and yeah, continued success for all of you and all of your family. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Seed. I'm Julie Staley. We hope you join us again on May 17th.